Greetings and welcome to a special video looking at the top 10 Morrowind mods of 2013. And as always, I'm your host Guy, and today we're taking a look back in time to the year 2013 to see what some of the best mods from that time period were. And I know this is a bit unusual, we're releasing this video in 2016 for a top 10 list from 2013. But you know, I've been playing a lot of these mods recently, and you know, to my mind, 2013 was surprisingly one of the best recent years of Morrowind modding. And of course I say surprisingly because 2013 was the first year that we didn't have Planet Elder Scrolls, arguably the core modding database for the Morrowind modding community, and that went down in 2012. And you know, the Nexus actually did step up pretty shortly afterwards of creating the Morrowind Nexus. I don't know if you guys remember, but before 2012 we actually shared a modding website with the Oblivion modding community on the Nexus, and that was always really confusing. You'd get all these comments about how do you install this on Oblivion in the Morrowind modding section, and it was just a really confusing time period, to be honest. But going back to 2013 here, this was a pretty traumatic time period for the community. A lot of mods were lost, and there was just chaos in the wake of losing our core website. But despite this, the community came together and produced one of the best years for the community in terms of mod releases, with over 650 new Morrowind mods being released in 2013 alone. Many of them were fairly massive, not to mention tons of high quality graphics replaces to make the game look better than ever before. So let's go back in time and take a look at some of the top 10 mods of 2013, and of course you'll find down the links to all these down in the video description below. And keep in mind, this is my personal preference. These top 10 mods may not well be in your top 10 mods list for the best mods of 2013. These are just based on the mods that I've played myself. There are a lot of really great mods that were released in 2013, and it would be impossible to represent all of them right here. But having said that, let's get started with number 10, Resdayn Revival Series Telvanni Lighthouses. The Resdayn Revival Telvanni Lighthouses at Branora and Telvos were an immersion and atmosphere set of mods that were released by the Resdayn Revival team originally on August 20th and September 13th of 2013 respectively. Now, as you may have guessed, this is actually two mods, but they're really very similar in terms of content. They add two different and unique lighthouses to two different locations of the Azurean coast region. So I thought I'd, combine them together for our top 10 slot. But anyway, these are some really cool and immersive atmospheric locations with unique architecture that takes full advantage of the designs of House Telvanni to create, these believable landmarks that would probably fit in pretty well with the vanilla launch game had they been included. And I especially like the lighthouse here near Telvos. You gotta love the way this Telvanni tower just comes out of this cliffside and spans upwards into the sky. And if you look closely, you'll see a beach down below with some washed ashore debris and items, not to mention a smuggler's campsite. And these mods are just full of minor details that make them, fun places to stumble upon and, climb to the top in order to get views of the surrounding areas, especially if you're using Distant Land with the Morrowind graphics extender. The Resdayn Revival series has been producing a ton of great content over the past few years, including graphical replaces and new locations like these, and they actually released 3 mods in 2013, though personally I like these two the best, though the other one is definitely worth checking out as well. And I should mention that Morrowind Rebirth does include the Lighthouse at Telvos mod already, if you have that mod installed or plan to get it. And while it doesn't include the Lighthouse at Branora, Rebirth does use the Lighthouse module inside of Mora as well. But anyway, these are just two really cool and atmospheric location mods that fit in perfectly with the game world of Morrowind, and that's why they're my number 10 pick for the best mods of 2013. And moving on, we have number 9, Shipwreck Home. And Shipwreck Home is a house mod that was originally released by JPB1 on May 6, 2013, and updated in 2015 by Cuddlefoot to clean out a few, dirty references here and there. And to my mind, Shipwreck Home was one of the most atmospheric and immersive housing mods to be released in 2013, because not only is it a beautifully detailed home that perfectly fits in with the Bitter Coast region here, but it took an already unique location already found in the vanilla game and made it better. Basically, this house mod expands upon the abandoned fishing shack that you could find in vanilla Morrowind, just a little ways, past Gunnar Mark, and this expansion includes a second shack, a shipwreck at the docks, and a couple of observation platforms and decks that are all, beautifully and atmospherically detailed to blend in with the swamps and bogs of the Bitter Coast region. And I really, I can't understate the detailing here. This feels like a lived-in location where the previous owners, just disappeared one day, leaving all their stuff behind to be claimed by you, some random adventurer. And besides the beautiful exterior though, there's also a storage shack and the shipwreck, which can act as a set of living quarters for you to use, presuming of course that you can kill off all the rats and skeletons and other miscreants that have, taken up residence here. And in any event, the amazing details, beautiful location, and, charming atmosphere is what makes this my number 9 pick for the mod of the year of 2013, and I'd highly recommend checking it out if you're looking for a small and unique house mod to use for your new character. Next up we have number 8, Races Redone, and this is actually a set of multiple texture replacer mods that were released by MacKom from August 2013 to November 2013. And essentially, these are complete replacers for the Orcs, Altmers, Red Guards, and Bretons of Morrowind, giving them new heads and faces for you to choose from, with vastly improved detailing and smoothing when compared to Morrowind's, old bulky heads that were perhaps, not quite as nice to look at, to put it mildly. And something I should mention is that the Races Redone series is still ongoing. MacKom is still working on it, updating additional races, and his latest mod is actually the Khajiit mod, released in March of 2016. And as far as I know, he's covered about 9 different playable races with his series of graphical replaces, and pretty much the only one he hasn't gotten to yet are the Argonians, but I'm sure that's coming down the line at some point. But anyway, moving on, MacKom's Races Redone series gives updated visuals with between 5 and 10 different head and face styles to choose from for each race, including highly detailed and smooth faces for all 4 races that you can use for your player characters. And a lot of them have, really nice touches. I especially like the realistic looking eyes in each of these head models here. And some of these faces also come with tattoos and the like. And, personally, I think they're kind of comparable to Skyrim a little bit. They're certainly better than Oblivion, but obviously Morrowind doesn't offer the level of player character customization that Skyrim has, with, regards to your player character. But regardless, these are some of the best race replaces available for Morrowind, and if you're looking to get your copy of Morrowind graphically updated, you should definitely give them a try, as well as, MacKom's more recent mods. The quality of these replaces is certainly one of the many reasons why these 4 mods are my number 8 pick for the mod of the year of 2013. And coming up, we have number 7, More Detailed Places 2013, and this is actually a kind of, sort of remake / update of an earlier mod. More Detailed Places 2013 was a town and gameplay overhaul mod released by Ragox and Zaldir on July 14th, 2013, but the original release date actually goes back to 2010 when Ragox was creating a set of individual mods called More Detailed Places that was eventually composed into a compilation project and given a major update in 2013. As such, it isn't a true 2013 mod, but I'm counting it anyway, since the 2013 version is the most complete. And in any event, what More Detailed Places sets out to do is, well, make the towns, cities, villages, and Fort Morrowind more detailed with more clutter, crates, barrels, the occasional new building or shop, and also the occasional dungeon, and tons of added, flora to cities and stuff like that. And this is a really immersive mod because vanilla Morrowind didn't actually have all that much in terms of detail and clutter in its cities when it first released. Now I imagine a lot of people are going to have a hard time believing this today, but when Morrowind launched, it was very graphically and resource intensive, and indeed most computers couldn't even handle Morrowind when it came out in 2002. I remember it wasn't until my 3rd computer in 2004 before I could, even get a decent frame rate in Morrowind. So the developers left a lot of towns and cities intentionally lacking in detail to try and save performance. But of course, nowadays that isn't, quite as big of a concern. And More Detailed Places really goes a long way to making the cities of Morrowind, just feel a bit more alive. Including lots of flora with additional farmers' fields and, small towns, and additional houses and markets in big cities like Branora, not to mention just more trees, bushes, grass, weeds, and of course the occasional Velothi-style tomb or general goods shop has been added to hamlets like Ald Velothi. And of course, more detailed places is sort of a different vision of Morrowind than Morrowind Rebirth, and the two will, completely conflict with one another. But it's nice to have a bit of choice between them, and if you want, smaller cosmetic changes to cities, go with more detailed places, and if you want more big gameplay changes and massive city changes, go with Morrowind Rebirth. And it should also be noted that Ragox, the author of this mod, has suggested that you shouldn't play more detailed places with the Morrowind graphics and sounds overhaul. I actually haven't really encountered any issues when playing this together with the Morrowind graphics and sounds overhaul, so that's up to you. Just, remember to update your version of the Morrowind graphics and sounds overhaul with a variety of the fixes and patches that are available on the Nexus, and if you don't know how to do that, there's actually a list of download links available in the How to Install Morrowind Mods tutorial video. You'll find a link to that in the annotations here, and also down in the video description. Either way, though, More Detailed Places is a fairly comprehensive and very immersive overhaul of the towns of Morrowind, and that's why it's my number 7 pick for the Mod of the Year of 2013. Next up we have number 6, Apel's Asura and Sheogorath region retexture, and this is a graphics mod that was released by Apel on July 1st of 2013, and it's actually one of several graphics mods that Apel made in 2013. And they're all, really fantastically high quality, and I'd recommend checking them out. But, this has always been my personal favorite, hence why I'm including it on this list. And basically what this mod does is it replaces all of the landscape textures of the Azura's Coast and Sheogorath regions of Ardenfell. But more than that, it also replaces the models and textures for all of the rocks, flora, and mushroom pods of the region as well. And these are some fantastically high quality models, at least by, Morrowind standards, and I would actually argue by Oblivion standards as well, if I'm being honest. And the Azura's Coast region and the Sheogorath region are two of my favourite areas. They have a lot of dungeons and a lot of Telvanni influence, which is probably why I like this replacer so much, because it makes exploring these regions feel like a kind of new experience with all this, just beautiful looking plant life, from the mushroom trees, the muck sponges, spore pods, creshweed and flowers, and let's not forget the salt rice, and also the marshmallow plants that this mod also replaces. And since it's a replacer, it does have the potential to, conflict with a few mods, but it should be mostly compatible with everything, I think. And it does also include some pretty amazing looking cliff-style rocks as well here that, make for some interesting environments in the sort of, rocky terrain of these islands. And of course, the landscape textures are also pretty excellent as well, especially the sand and mud textures around the base of each island. This is my, by far favourite overhaul mod for the Azura's Coast region, because it really does, cover everything, and keeps to a pretty consistent quality overall. And, ultimately, that's why it's my number 6 pick. Moving on, we have number 5, Face of the Hortator, and this was a dungeon mod that was released by Infragris on December 5th of 2013. And let me just, say this real quick, I'm a huge sucker for dungeon mods. I love dungeons and I love having new content to play and fight through. And Face of the Hortator is one of the best dungeon mods I've ever played, hands down. And if I ever get around to, making a top 10 Morrowind Dungeons mod list, this is going to be on it for sure. And, 2013 was a fantastic year for dungeon mods overall. I mean, we actually have another dungeon mod further up on this list that we'll be getting to in a moment, and that practically never happened. But anyway, Face of the Hortator adds a Velothi-style mine and excavation site to the Malag Omur region, being led by a mad and obsessed team of Dunmeri explorers looking for the lost heritage of the Hortator, a mythical mask from the First Era, and presumably from around the events of Red Mountain and the disappearance of the dwarves and, all that whatnot. And of course, you'll face a variety of enemies in the depths of this massive dungeon, and climb through many different environments, including ancient Velothi tombs, mining tunnels, and long-lost Dunmeri strongholds. There's just a lot of, fun dungeon delving content here, and these dungeon interiors are fantastically detailed and filled with hostiles that'll, keep you on your toes, and this place is ideal for about level 15 through 20 characters. Though of course, you'll see me, just one-shotting things down here with my little cheat character, and, that's because I am cheating massively. I almost always use a cheat character when I'm doing showcases like this. But anyway, you also find tons of flavor documents and text while you explore this dungeon, providing a backstory and a bit of an explanation for what these people are doing here, as well as, integrating everything rather nicely with Morrowind's existing lore. And, this is definitely a lore-friendly mod that'll, for the most part, blend in with the rest of the game should you, just happen to stumble upon it. though some of the interiors here are quite a bit, more epic and dramatic looking than what you might find in regular old Morrowind. Either way, this is a fantastic dungeon mod, and that's why it's my number 5 pick for our top 10 lineup here. Next up we have number 4, Solstheim Tomb of the Snow Prince, and this is a massive landscape and graphics overhaul released by Wally BB on December 23rd of 2013. And it's really hard to overstate just how much this mod does. This is basically a complete landscape overhaul for the entire island of Solstheim, adding new content and, making this Nordic-themed island look visually a lot more like, Skyrim rather than dear old Morrowind. And if you haven't played Blood Moon before, Solstheim in vanilla Morrowind was basically just a kind of barren island with snow, trees, and the occasional bit of ice. In terms of landscape, it was, very boring looking. Now with Wally BB's Solstheim overhaul, you have these dramatic spiked peaks and mountains that tower in the distance, large and dense forests that you can easily get lost in, and dangerous paths along cliff sides and past gorges, awaiting a less careful adventurer to fall into them. And this overhaul, of course, also includes the various settlements of Solstheim, such as Fort Frostmoth, which has seen a massive overhaul, including a new set of docks and warehouses along the coast here, as well as new fortifications to protect the Imperial inhabitants in this hostile land from, possible incursion. And there's even a bit of a town here that has, just sort of popped up in the courtyard with new shops and homes for you to explore as you so desire. But outside the comforting, towering walls of Fort Frostmoth, Solstheim is a much more dangerous place than it was before, with, a jagged landscape of rocks, trees, flora, and ancient ruins that have become home to all sorts of unsavory elements. You notice there's been a lot of inspiration taken from the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim with the landscape design here, so if you're a Skyrim player looking to venture into Morrowind for the first time, you may definitely want to give this mod a try in order to feel a little bit at home. And, I just have to point out how detailed the landscape is. There's just so much content jam-packed in here, including new alchemical plants such as mushrooms and the like that you can now find out in the wilderness, as well as, new ancient Nordic barrows of massive ruins on the surface, just like, those found in Skyrim. And you'll even find hidden exterior caves all over the island that hide loot and other things for you to discover. And there's never been an overhaul quite like this for Solstheim, and it's certainly the best one out there by far, though, having said that, it should be mentioned that though it looks, really cool, it is very difficult to traverse the landscape now, and NPCs in particular will have a hard time with it. There's a lot of escort missions on Solstheim where you have to, guide NPCs from one location to the next, so this landscape will make that extremely difficult. I'd really recommend using Melian's teleport mod if you plan on playing Solstheim Tomb of the Snow Prince, just to make things a little easier on yourself. And of course, this is a very performance-heavy mod, and chances are if you don't have a high-end rig, you're going to see some pretty massive frame rate drops here. Keep in mind, because Morrowind is on an older game engine, it only uses a single core of your processor, so even potentially high-end computers may have difficulty with high-detail environments. But anyway, regardless, this is one, massive and beautiful overhaul mod, and that's more than enough reason for it to be our number 4 pick. Next up we have number 3, Branora Underworld, and this is another dungeon mod that was released by Fulgor on March 17th, 2013. And like I said before, 2013 was a very good year for Morrowind dungeon mods. I mean, we got not only one, but 2 big epic-sized dungeon mods. I mean, that almost never happens, not even in Morrowind's prime. And basically what this mod does is it adds a large sewer system underneath the streets of Branora with a new marketplace. And this new marketplace is called the Thousand Lanterns Way, probably on account of the fact that it has, about 1,000 lanterns down here. And it's just a really beautifully detailed environment, and if this were the entire mod, it would probably still be worth a mention due to the occasional quest down here written by Morrowind and Oblivion modder Envy developer, and of course all the other cool stuff that's been, stuffed into this large marketplace. But the Thousand Lanterns Way is only the beginning, and I realise that a good number of players actually miss about 90% of the content that Branora Underworld adds. Because the actual dungeon part of this mod is actually, surprisingly well hidden, and you can only find it via careful observation, and I'm not going to, spoil where the entrance is, but once you find it, you're in for a absolutely massive dungeon romp that'll take you deep into the depths below, starting with abandoned sewers full of bandits, and gradually leading down into a series of caves. And you'll notice that this entire dungeon is just beautifully detailed with lots of immersive elements and a hand-built style that makes the whole thing, feel just really atmospheric. and of course there's plenty of humanoid foes down here as well. And overall, I think this is actually an easier set of dungeons than Face of the Hortator, but again, I'm using a cheat character, so quite possibly I'm not the best judge of the difficulty level here. And that said, I'd probably recommend about level 12, maybe 15 in here. And of course, the meat of the dungeon is actually a large set of Dwemer ruins that you'll get to gradually explore. But anyway, as I've said so many times before, I am a bit biased when it comes to dungeon mods because, I am a dungeon modder, and that's the sort of thing I really like to play, and hence why they're, ranked so high up on the list here. But you really just don't see that many fantastic dungeon mods like this every year, and certainly not dungeons this well crafted, hence why I'm picking this as my number 3 choice for mod of the year. Coming close to the end here, we have number 2, Logan's Texture Replaces, and this is actually several graphical replacer mods that were released by Logan from January through to November of 2013. And for those of you who don't know Logan's work, he's made a ton of bump mapped texture replaces both for Morrowind and Oblivion, and he has some of the highest rated texture replaces on the Nexus in both communities, largely because he does, really good quality work. And in any event, over the course of 2013, he released 11 texture replacer packages covering everything from Hlaalu architecture to Redone architecture, various creatures like Spriggans and Netch, terrain rocks and landscape textures, waterfalls and ponds, and even a complete cavern texture overhaul that I believe is the absolute best existing set of cavern textures that's available for Morrowind. It's just, of really fantastic quality. Now, this choice for our second pick is likely to go on a few mixed opinions because everyone has, different preferences when it comes to what texture replaces they prefer to use. And Logan's texture replaces are not, strictly speaking, 100% vanilla lore friendly. They do kind of, put style and appearance above staying true to what the original game looks like. And for those who prefer to have, more of that vanilla feel, Tidy has created a set of, truly fantastic replaces that are also, largely cover many of these same architecture sets and are more, towards that lore-friendly sort of vibe. But still, I really like Logan's work, and as far as I know, these are some of the best quality texture replaces available for Morrowind, on par with Tidy's work, though keep in mind that they may one day be out of date, since Morrowind graphic technology is always evolving with the twin paths of physical-based rendering supported by the Morrowind graphics extender, XC Edition, and a regular normal mapping supported by OpenMW, providing more technologically advanced options for future texture artists and texture packs. But given that none of this was available in 2013 when these mods were first released, these are some really fantastic and awesome looking replaces, and they'll probably hold up for years to come until OpenMW gets finished and someone makes a full set of normal mapped replaces to cover these same sets. But until then, Logan's bumped mapped replaces are well worth checking out if you want to graphically update Morrowind right away, and of course, this is one of the many reasons why this is our number 2 pick for Mod of the Year of 2013. Finally, we have number 1, Wormhaven, and this is a fairly large quest and landmass mod that was released by Neoptolemus on December 8th of 2013, and like I've said in several past top 10 videos, I have a pretty big bias when it comes to content mods. I love content mods, I'm a content modder myself, and as it so happens, I like the type of mods I create, so it's a little surprise that I absolutely love Neoptolemus' expansion-sized faction, quest, and island mod that adds a new landmass to explore with a new faction to join, and over 20 new quests to play through, not to mention several dungeons to fight through and dozens of new items and artifacts waiting to be discovered. Of course, the main content of this mod is actually a new massive imperial city that dominates the island. There's over 60 buildings here, including multiple shops, taverns, docks, houses, manors, and so on and so forth. And, to compare that in terms of scale, it's about the same size as Branora. And of course, performance takes a bit of a hit right here in the city because, Morrowind doesn't process urban environments very well. So you will most likely experience a bit of lag, but, ignoring that, there's a ton of cool interiors and places to visit in the city, including, I believe, the option to eventually buy your own house. There's just an absolute ton of content here, which, again, is something I always enjoy. I'm like a kid in a candy store when it comes to, good content mods like this, and you'll always find so much to check out here. With, lots of new items, creatures, and more, and some of you may be familiar with some of Neoptolemus' previous works, which includes a variety of creature, immersion, and dungeon mods, and he's clearly put in a lot of effort into making Wormhaven feel like a living, breathing trade port that just, feels like an all-new expansion to the game. Like, how Solstheim first felt when Blood Moon was released. But moving on, there's a lot of landmarks on the island outside of town as well, from burned down buildings and lonely chapels, to mining operations and forlorn shipwrecks along the coast, and of course ancient ruins as you'll, find over the course of the island's main questline. And it should be noted that one of the really nice things about Wormhaven is that it is compatible with Terra Rebuilt. You can actually play both at the same time, and in fact, as far as I can tell, there are no landmass mod conflicts of any kind with Wormhaven. And again, that's just as far as I know. I've only tested so many landmass mods, but chances are you can play this with just about anything, including, by the way, Morrowind Rebirth, since it's compatible with that as well. And in case you were wondering, I've included a list of the mods shown that are compatible with Morrowind Rebirth, and which ones are also included already in Morrowind Rebirth, because multiple mods on this list are actually already merged into the Rebirth, compilation mod. But anyway, we don't see a lot of landmass mods for Morrowind these days, or really ever, honestly. And it's really rare to ever get a landmass mod of such high quality in any given year, which is why this is my personal pick for the mod of the year for 2013. There's just so much content, and it's just of such a good quality. There's everything to like about this mod. But of course, we're not quite done yet. I do have two honourable mentions I'd like to give out as well. For our first honourable mention, we have the Hostiles, and this is an NPC/hostile creature mod that was released by Trevor Demented on October 31st of 2013. And truth be told, this is actually a re-release of an older mod, kind of like the more detailed places mod we covered earlier, but the feature-complete version was released in 2013, hence why I'm counting it here. But anyway, this is actually a really cool mod that adds new hostile NPCs to the environments of Morrowind, both by, adding hostile NPCs to existing leveled lists that determine creature spawns, and by adding in new leveled lists so you'll have hostile encounters in places that you never had, any fights at before. And I know, leveled content often conjures negative emotions, but what the Hostiles does is really, quite neat. While this mod does use a lot of leveled lists, the level of the NPCs is actually random, so you may encounter powerful foes or weak ones, and they can appear just about everywhere. Exploring a dark tomb full of undead, you may still stumble upon a hostile adventuring party that's also exploring the tomb and doesn't, want to share the loot. Checking out that cool Druid dungeon that you just saw the other day? What a coincidence, so are these bandits. You never know what to expect with the Hostiles, but one thing's for sure, you'll have, a lot of these random hostile encounters, and you'll have a lot of fun doing so. This mod just adds an extra level of challenge and, excitement to the game that I think both veteran players and new players alike can enjoy, hence why I'm giving it an honourable mention here. And last of all, for our second honourable mention, I'd like to make a call out to the Dreamers expansion. And this is another creature and NPC mod released by Evolga on December 28th of 2013. Now, in vanilla Morrowind, there wasn't really much in the way of, variety in terms of the kinds of foes that you could face in a 6-house dungeon. You had a bunch of naked Dunmeri, corpus stalkers, various ascended sleepers, ash slaves, and that was about it really. With the Dreamers expansion, you'll find a lot more different kinds of dreamers, many of them in different stages of contracting the disease corpus, and this is often evident on their bodies with strange growths, wounds, and bandages. There's also a number of normal-looking people added to the 6th house here. These are dreamers in their early stages, not yet crippled by the divine disease of corpus, yet still enthralled by Dagth's beckoning. And you also find mini-bosses in some of these 6-house bases, sort of like some of the named Ascended Sleepers that you might encounter at Red Mountain or in other places. And you also encounter Dreamer Warriors, which are well-equipped, unlike, normal Dreamers, and prepared to fight to the death to prevent you from entering a 6-house shrine. There's actually a fair bit of content here, and, this just goes to add some more variety to the types of hostile encounters that you can find in a 6-house dungeon specifically. And anyway, that wraps up all the mods I wanted to cover for this video. 2013 was unquestionably a fantastic year for Morrowind modding, and I've no doubt missed some of your favourites. Just keep in mind, this list is based on my personal preferences and playthroughs, and is by no means an absolutely perfect list of the best Morrowind mods of 2013. I'd highly encourage you to share your own favourite mods down in the comments below, and in any event, thanks for watching this retrospective top 10 list, and I'll see you all next time with our next episode of Morrowind Modding Showcase.